Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker had a lot to say about why he's running for president here. So let's do the old WADR breakdown, starting with what Walker said about his record in Wisconsin.
Since I've been governor, we took on the unions and we won. We lowered taxes by $2 billion. In fact, we lowered taxes on individuals, on employers, and property owners. Property taxes today are lower than they were 4 years ago. How many other governors can say that? Since I've been governor, we passed lawsuit reform and regulatory reform. We defunded Planned Parenthood and passed pro-life legislation. We enacted castle doctrine and concealed carry so we can protect ourselves, our families, and our property. And we now require a photo ID to vote in this state. If our reforms can work in a blue state like Wisconsin, they can work anywhere in America.
Al, we know from our focus groups, from the Walker team's focus groups, a lot of residents in Iowa for the reform or the recall fight. What other aspects of Walker's Wisconsin record do you think will stand out for voters in this Republican nomination battle?
Well, I think, as the statesman once said, what he said today in that clip we just showed had the added virtue of being true. That record really is real. I think the anti-union stuff is going to play huge among caucus and primary voters in a lot of states. Cutting taxes is an old standby that works, certainly in the GOP contest. Let me tell you a sleeper issue I think that might hurt him, and I'll tell you why. It seems like it's very parochial, but he's for funding the Milwaukee Bucks arena there. At the same time, he's he's for cutting spending for higher ed. Now, the problem with that is the Milwaukee Bucks are owned by billionaires. Why do you need public funding of that? Pat Moynihan 15 years ago said it's one of the great ripoffs. I think the Ted Cruz's of the world are really going to go after him on that one.
Yeah, I think Walker and to some extent John Kasich, who gets in next week, face the same problem, which is they're darn proud of their records as governors. Their approval ratings are not sky high. They've got to somehow make what they did in their states tangible. And I think for a lot of people, understanding why what you did in your state can be taken nationally, neither of them, and Walker didn't do it today, connects up and said, I did this in Wisconsin. You make me president, I'll do this analog in Washington. Bill Clinton did that. George Bush did that. I've not heard any of the governors running do that in a very specific way, and I think that's a big missing piece for him. All right, let's move on. Look at another bit of what Walker said. 3 words, key for him: reform, growth, and safety.
As I travel this country, though, I got to tell you, I hear from people who say they're frustrated with politicians telling people what they're against and who they're against. Americans want to vote for something and for someone. So tonight, let me tell you what I'm for. I'm for reform, growth, safety. I'm for transferring power from Washington into the hands of hardworking taxpayers in states all across the country. That's real reform. I'm for building a better economy that allows everyone to live their piece of the American dream. That's pro-growth. And I'm for protecting our children and our grandchildren from radical Islamic terrorism and all other threats in the world. That's true safety. My record shows that I know how to fight and win. Now more than ever, America needs a president who will fight and win for America.
So, Al, Walker's been using this word safety as kind of a stand-in for national security for a long time. What do you think of it as a long-term winning gambit to convince people he's ready to be commander-in-chief?
Well, he avoided one of his great faux pas when he once said that he could take on the Islamic State because he's taken on labor unions in Wisconsin. He didn't quite say that today. Look, he's got a ways to go on national security. He's got to pass that test. Most governors do. Ronald Reagan did back in 1980. But I don't really think he made much headway today on that score.
No, I don't. And I got to say, this word safety, I haven't liked it from the beginning. My instincts might be wrong about it, but I think it's just a little bit too cute by half. He's trying to make it a kitchen table issue, talk about it in a way that families can understand. But I think, particularly now with the world so dangerous, people don't want a euphemism or a stand-in word. They want to know more specifically what you would do about the biggest national security issues of our time. And trying to reduce facing off against Putin to safety, I just don't think in the long term that's really going to get him through this.
Yeah, I agree, and he's going to have to address specifics. For all the tough talk about ISIS, at some point these people have to say what they would do. Are they going to send troops? Lindsey Graham says yes. We have to see what Scott Walker and Cruz and Jeb Bush say.
Yep. All right, let's look at a little bit more of Walker addressing what will clearly be one of the hurdles he needs to get over to become the Republican nominee. More of Scott Walker from today's speech here on foreign policy.
Sadly, today, under the Obama-Clinton doctrine, America is leading from behind, and that has us headed towards a disaster. Earlier this year, President Obama declared, he proclaimed, that the greatest threat to future generations is global warming, climate change. Well, Mr. President, I respectfully disagree. The greatest threat to future generations is radical Islamic terrorism, and we need to do something about it. We need to stop the aggression of Russia into sovereign nations. You see, Putin believes in the old Lenin principle that you probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. Under Obama and Clinton, Putin has found a whole lot of mush over the last few years.
So, Al, we both agree that this speech didn't take him very far in making the case that he's ready to be commander-in-chief. If you can't do it in your announcement speech, what are the opportunities you'll think he will have going forward to convince people that he's ready to do that part of the job?
I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities, Mark. He's going to probably give a couple foreign policy speeches over the next couple months. He has to try to show he has some credentials, and he's going to take some questions. He'll have to do that also, and he's going to have to be specific. He avoided specifics today. Most announcement speeches really do avoid specifics.
Al, what do you think his political advisors, or rather, the political advisors to people like Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio are saying today about this event, whether it worries them at all, Walker's strength?
I don't think they're worried by today's event. I think they're going to keep harping on two questions. One, he's a flip-flopper, so is he really authentic? And number two, can you really envision this guy as commander-in-chief? Those are his two great challenges, his two potential vulnerabilities.
Yeah. On the things where he has flip-flopped, things like on rhetoric to some extent and sometimes positions on immigration, on abortion, on some of those other issues, he either didn't touch on them or touched them only lightly today. He clearly knows that those issues are going to come back, and that's where he will be tested. So often in politics, opponents go at their opposition's strength. Walker's putting himself forth as an unbending man of principle, and now he's got to deal with the implications of some of the flip-flops.